Hey everyone, welcome to the Coach Catalyst podcast. This show is about helping you grow as a coach by standing on the shoulders of giants. Each show, you get a different mentor in your ear. The early motivations, the successes, the failures, the tools, the tricks, and the insight into where the industry is going. All of it so you can make your own dent in the world. Remember, success leaves clues. Now, without further ado, on to the show.
Welcome to the Coach Catalyst podcast. I'm your host, Trevor Whitwer. Today, I had the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Ken Kinakin, and today was a little bit different. We're not going to talk about his work as a chiropractor, as a rehab specialist, or as a strength coach. We're going to talk about kind of his other gig, which he's the founder of SWIS. SWIS, S-W-I-S Symposium or SWIS Summit is a conference that Ken has been doing since 1999. And honestly, I hadn't even heard about it until about 2 years ago when a good friend of mine had introduced me to it. And we're going to be there. Coach Catalyst is going to be there at the summit, October 28th and 29th, I believe, on what it is. But what really fascinated me about this particular conference is that it blends two fields that don't typically interact a lot with each other: this performance training world and the medical rehab world. And so you've probably noticed in the industry, there's a lot of blend that's happening. And we don't really get a chance to learn from the other side. And so I thought it was super cool that Ken brings all of these people into one hotel for 2 days, and you get to learn from the best and brightest in the nutrition field, in the training field, in the performance world, in the weightlifting world, in the medical world, regenerative medicine, the rehab world. All of them are in one room for 2 days, and you get to interact with them. And I think it's so cool, and we don't have anything like that in the industry, right? And so Ken and I go deep into the origins of SWIS. It started in 1999. He's been doing it for over 2 decades. We talk about why he started it, and we talk about why you should attend. Why is this the elite conference that any coach that wants to level up their skills should be at? So I hope you enjoy the episode with Dr. Ken Kinakin. Ken, welcome to the Coach Catalyst podcast. How are you doing today, sir?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Trevor. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, I'm really excited about our guest today, and we'll get into a lot of his background here in a second. But we are fortunate to be part of SWIS, which is a conference that is coming up here in October. And we're super excited for the conference, really because it's just different than most of the other conferences, summits out there. It's really trying to bring together this blend of health professional, think like chiropractor, physical therapist, medical doctor, and this fitness profession, right? Strength coaches, athlete coaches, sport coaches. And we're starting to see they're starting to blend, right? They're starting to get closer and closer together because we're all just trying to help people perform at the highest level, whether it's in life or on the field or court. And we know that we need each other, and we know that we need skills in both places. And so I'm super excited to talk to Ken about SWIS, because that's really the origin of SWIS, is how do we blend these two professions together, and we get the best people in both worlds, and we bring them together and figure out how can we work together. Would you say, Ken, that's an accurate kind of representation of what you're trying to accomplish with SWIS?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to get the best within the weight training area. So I created a whole different field called weight training sports medicine. What that is that you have 3 different groups. The first group is actually the weight training athlete. Could be a powerlifter, could be a bodybuilder, could be an Olympic lifter, could be a recreational athlete, could be a CrossFitter. So anyone that's actually utilizing weights, because what we found is weight training injuries is a lot different than a football injury or a hockey injury or a running injury. So you're using max weight and lower repetition than, say, running. You have the other area, as far as you have the strength coaches and personal trainers that get clients that aren't functioning optimally. So then what do they do with them? And so there's been some great advances in the rehab world and really trying to structurally figure out how can we make this athlete perform better, but not be in pain. Then you have the health professionals, and this would be the chiropractors, which is I am. You have the physical therapist, you have the massage therapist, osteopaths, athletic trainer, medical doctors, orthopedic surgeons, regenerative medicine, which we can talk about. And so that's another field as far as if something is really structurally wrong or completely dysfunctional, that the trainer or strength coach is beyond their scope, then that's where we can definitely utilize. What I've seen, and I've been doing the SWIS symposium since 1999, so we're going on 23 years now. And over that time, I've seen so many advances in this area of training, of treatment, of nutrition, and definitely therapeutics. So we're starting to see it more and more. And the challenge that I always had is that, me practicing for, 32 years, if I go to a chiropractic conference, we all talk about chiropractic,
right?
And if you go to a, personal training conference, you talk about personal training and strength training. Well, what I did is I put them all into one hotel or one area event, and they all get to interact and they all learn from each other, which is what you want, because a lot of times the trainers aren't aware of some of the treatment protocols that are available.
Right.
And the doctors and therapists, they're like, oh, so that's how you rehab it. And so that you make the connection. So the other thing is you do a cross referral. And the whole aspect is that how can a trainer also work with a physical therapist or a chiropractor or a medical doctor? How do you get to work with them? Number one is obviously raise your knowledge, and number two, really understand what each field does.
Right.
So that's what my goal has been for the past couple of decades, and we're continuing to do that.
Yeah, I mean, because honestly, especially in this world, like the people that are going to go to SWIS, and this year, I just want to give you guys the dates. It's October 28th and 29th in Columbus, Ohio. So if you want to check that out,
Correct.
You can just go to, just type in SWIS 2022 and it'll show up in Google and you'll be able to grab it. But I think one thing, like as a coach personally, is I may not always trust the people that are in my local area because they may not be looking for the next level like we are with our athletes and with our clients. And the cool thing about SWIS is like the only people that are going to this are people that want to up level their skills and really learn from these other professions. And so they're much more open to, sharing clients, sharing knowledge. And now with the power of the internet, you can really have consultations in a virtual setting and people are way more comfortable with it. And so you're able to refer out to someone who is maybe the best in their field and they don't live locally. You can now do that with the power of the internet. And so I think that's what I'm most excited about, is just being in the room with the smartest people in all of these fields and that really respect each other's fields or they wouldn't be there. And so, Ken, what are you most excited about for this year's kind of 2022 SWIS Symposium?
The biggest thing that I'm excited about is just the interaction. And we've been shut down. So I'm in Ontario, Canada. And so the gyms were closed for 339 days. Like, in Columbus, Ohio, they weren't shut for a single day. Every state had its own challenges and whatnot. But it's been really, really difficult. I have a number of patients that they lost their gyms. In fact, they lost their house and gyms because they, third mortgaged their house in order to carry the gym. And they couldn't make it. So my main focus this year is really to have an interaction with business minded, and how can you actually meet these people. So last year I did a virtual online conference and I interviewed 70 people from all over the world on what does it take for a trainer to get a referral from a doctor or a therapist. And I heard a whole bunch of different styles, and it was wonderful information. But that's where it stopped because no one really took initiative to actually utilize that information. It's kind of getting a training program or a diet program and you don't use it.
Right.
It's great information, but it works a little better if you actually work it.
Right.
And that's what I found. So what we're actually doing is something very unique, and I haven't released this yet, but we're going to be setting up business meetups. And what that will be is that we'll have a list of all the different people in different cities. So say at 3:00 on Saturday, everyone that's from Columbus, Ohio, meet at flag number 1 in front of the training room. And so if you're a doctor or a therapist or a personal trainer or strength coach or a nutritionist, you get to go there and you get to meet people one-on-one.
Yep.
Do you connect with them? Do you like them? And a lot of times they may be, working, within a mile away, and you had no idea who they were or what they even do. And I'm doing this primarily because last year I did all this information. No one really did anything until
Mm-hmm.
someone actually pointed out. He says, Ken, you have no idea how intimidating it is to come in and talk to you and, to ask you for referrals and want to work with you. And I went, you know what? That's a good point. It's no different than I can know all the greatest pickup lines. If I see a
Right.
beautiful lady, I got to figure out the courage to go up and ask her. And, a lot of times there's rejection there. So it's the same thing as far as creating that professional aspect. So if I set up the actual meetup, that will just transform. And that's the main purpose. Because right now we're in such a virtual world. You can sit back and you can watch all the different information. But my goal is, how do we make this experiential? How do we make this as practical as possible? So I've told all the different presenters, especially in the training, the rehab, and also the treatment protocols, treatment streams. We have 5 streams. And I said, you know what? Make it practical. Pull people out of the audience, have them come up on stage, do the test, do the rehab exercise, coach them on the actual lifting. Do not do a PowerPoint presentation. If you sit there and go through slides for the next 60 minutes, I'm telling them, I said, you know what? That's a YouTube video.
Right.
There's no reason for them to actually be sitting in that room.
Right.
So you got to make it practical. The only stream that will be PowerPoint or slide decks will be nutrition, because a lot of times it's hard to do some of the practical aspect of it, but there are some people that can.
Right.
But the whole focus is that how do we get cutting edge information, but primarily how do we use that? So my goal with all the different presenters, and I have over 55 presenters, number one, what are they going to learn? And number two, even more importantly, what can they implement on Monday morning?
Mm-hmm.
What's just even one thing? Just one thing. And if you do that, man, that can be formative to such a large degree, especially when you're learning from the best in the world.
Right. Yeah, information is one thing, but just information in and of itself really doesn't do anything. It's the implementation of that information where you can actually start making changes. So, that's an awesome kind of iteration on what you've been doing. So what are the 5 tracks? You said there's 5 different streams, kind of 5 different tracks that are part of this. What are those 5?
It's actually 6. So it's the training stream.
Yep.
So this is all the top powerlifters, bodybuilders, strength coaches, personal trainers on training. We also have the rehabilitative track, so all the different rehab people. We have the treatment track, all the doctors and therapists utilizing different protocols there. We have a nutrition track, which is what we're going to be talking about. A lot of different protocols on nutrition, fat loss, hormones. And then on the Friday, I decided to do a business track. Okay. So I've asked some of the top presenters, what does it take to actually become business resilient? That's going to be so, so important, because, the economy, inflation is at a 40-year high. Just yesterday, the British pound just crashed. It's just unbelievable. So we're starting to see the economies really starting to take a hit. And then on the Saturday, we have a stream called Just One Thing. And so this is where the sponsors, such as yourself, and I'm really excited to see what you guys have to present, get 15 minutes, and all the other presenters to the entire schedule had filled, but there was a lot of other really good presenters that I wanted them to present. So I said, you know what, let's do a TED Talk style. You got 15 minutes. What's one thing that they can actually learn? And that way they can implement it on Monday morning. What I find with most presentations is that the goal is to have a person walk out with just one thing that they can actually utilize, not 15, not try and put it in all different theory. So I found that the less time that you give someone, the more powerful the presentation. Right. Because otherwise they go off on tangents and they tell a lot of stories, which is nice, but you want solutions. So I'm trying to be more solution focused.
Yeah, I think a lot of presentations and books are that way. You could summarize everything in about a 1-page thing, but then we use 99 other pages to basically just reinforce and just kind of support our main topic. So I think that's a great idea. So you've been doing SWIS since 1999. So we're dealing with 20 plus years of running a conference, and just having I think just even being able to run a conference for that long is a testimony in and of itself of longevity,
Yeah.
right? Like, because if people didn't value it, if people didn't keep coming back, like you wouldn't continue to run a conference, right? Like you don't have the numbers to do it because live events are expensive and they're really challenging and
Very.
they're a ton of work. And
Yeah.
so to do that for, over 2 decades, that's a huge accomplishment.
Thank you.
So what have you learned? I mean, from the first one in 1999 to like what you guys are rolling out now, what are some of the things you've learned and how have you improved the conference so that the experience just keeps getting better year over year?
I think the biggest thing is to try and get the presenters to focus on giving solutions and not information.
Hmm.
That's been the biggest thing. The other thing is understanding that there is a difference between the art and science of weight training. I'll give an example. The science is this is what happens when you weight train and everything else. The art is understanding the nuances and what type of protocol will work for each person. Case in point. So in 2001, I had Dorian Yates, 6-time Mr. Olympia, one of the top bodybuilders of all time, just a monster, come and present. And Dorian's type of training is basically 1 or 2 sets, super heavy weight, low reps, 6-time Mr. Olympia. The year after, I had Lee Haney, 8-time Mr. Olympia. That basically what he did is high sets, high reps, lower weight. And I looked at that, and I get to talk to these gentlemen in person. I asked Dorian, I said, "Did you ever try the high set, high rep?" And he said, "Yeah, it didn't work." Then I asked Lee Haney, "Did you ever try, Dorian's style of heavy weight?" He says, "Yeah, it didn't work."
Hmm.
That taught me the art of training.
Right.
What works for you? And so I try and bring in as many different presenters, as many different styles of treatment, of training, of nutrition, and that's to give you the science behind it, but also another tool. I'm always looking for what's another great tool that you can utilize to help these people through their different issues. And
Hmm.
we're starting to see it more and more, especially in the treatment world, where energy medicine is starting to go in as far as acupuncture, laser, pulse magnetic field. All
Hmm.
these different protocols are starting to make a big difference. We have regenerative medicine, which is stem cells and
Right.
PRP. We're going to have Dr. Jeremy Gurman. He's a doctor in Ohio, and we're actually going to be doing a live PRP treatment under diagnostic ultrasound on stage. I asked them to do that so people can actually see the experience. Yes, slides is real nice, but when you see a big giant friggin' needle go into a muscle under diagnostic ultrasound, and you can see the actual tear, and you're experiencing that, that's a whole different level of an experience. So we're trying to make this as experiential as possible, as opposed to just taking
Right.
pictures and slides and video and whatnot. So that's been the biggest thing, is that for me to always get the presenters to push their envelope and to try and work with people, not only showing people how to do it, but also what are the coaching points. So we're having Bill Kazmaier and Ed Cohen in 2018. They did a great coaching session where we actually pulled everyone up on the stage and they did the squat, the bench press, and deadlift. So you got to see Ed Cohen and Bill Kazmaier literally coach someone where their weaknesses are. Try this, because it's always small nuances. It's the same thing in golf. 2 degrees off, you're off in the trees. You know
Hmm.
what? If you happen to bend over too far, you're not going to make the lift. And it's all these small coaching points. And especially when you see the best in the world talking about that and what they've actually experienced, it's incredible. So those are all the things that we're going to be doing. And again, it's going to be more experiential. It's going to
Right.
be focused in on practical aspects.
Yeah, that was the word that came to mind. And I was going to say, I feel like the practicality of this, where so many conferences, it's like a snooze fest, right? Because you're just listening to PowerPoint after PowerPoint after PowerPoint. And I think the smarter people get, the worse their PowerPoints get because they're
Yeah.
so smart and they have so much knowledge and they try and lay it all out there. And then you just leave more confused than when you came in. And
Yeah.
so I really appreciate the focus on practicality.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm really excited to see on a big screen a needle go into someone's leg, because like that's stuff you just don't get, right? And so I think that's probably the power of the blend of both the medical side and also kind of the performance side. And like, how do we blend the two? Like, how do we, because ultimately our goal in any field, whether it's medical or whether it's performance, we want that person, that client, that athlete to be able to perform at their best or get back to their best as quickly as possible.
Yep.
And so we want to do as much as we can. And so I think
Yep.
the more we can work with people in other fields that have skills that we don't have, the faster we're going to be able to help that person. And the fastest way to trust that other field is to learn about them and what are they doing, and find out that, oh, hey, they do actually care just as much as we do. They're not just trying to like take a client, and vice versa. We see it both in the medical field looking at the performance field and performance looking at medical. And so would you say that's one of the reasons why this conference is really successful is because it is this blend between, because even 1999, like there were kind of probably more clearer lines in the sand of like, hey, this is a personal trainer and this is their lane. This is a medical doctor. This is their lane. But now we're starting to see this kind of like crossover with the internet and more access to knowledge and more access to tools. Like, what have you been seeing from your end? Because you're kind of on the medical side, but you're also a strength guy as well.
Yeah, I compete in powerlifting. I just competed 2 months ago. So I've been competing for over 40 years in powerlifting. So I get it. And I actually got into my profession because I sustained a knee injury squatting. And so I had to figure out how to recover. And I was in a 165-pound class, squatting over 500 pounds. 2 weeks before the nationals, I'm going to try and make the world team. My knee, I was just warming up 400, sounded like a bed sheet ripping on my right knee. And I went, man, it's 2 weeks before. So I had to pull out. And so I started, seeing different therapists and doctors and physiotherapists. And, I could get up to a 400 after, 6-8 months, I could get up to a 400-pound squat, but I couldn't get any higher because it was too painful. And so everyone's like, well, maybe do leg extension or leg press. And I went, well, no, because I compete in powerlifting. That's my sport.
Right.
And then my dad said, well, why don't you go to the chiropractor? And I went, why? It's my knee. It's not my back. So he says, go. So I went, and he did some muscle testing on me, we got a number of different seminars and presentations on muscle testing for weight training. And the right leg basically just was not functioning as well, but it was actually coming from the back. My whole basically pelvis had torqued and also caused some dysfunction within the lower lumbar, which is creating an inhibition down the whole right leg. So he said, your knee healed a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
He says, your leg is fine, but your back is not functioning as well. So after about 2 or 3 weeks of treatment, I was back squatting over 500 pounds, pain-free, because all of a sudden everything started to function very, very well. And I went, wow. So that's what inspired me to go to school and to become a chiropractor and now apply some of that knowledge to the different aspects, because it's a little bit different. It's like everyone has an idea that, if a muscle is weak, you just need to strengthen it.
Right.
Well, no, because there may be some kind of dysfunction.
Right.
So if you have knee pain, could be coming from the ankle, could be coming from the hip. So you got to check both areas to see whether or not everything is functioning as well. And sometimes rehabilitation works fantastic using bands, certain isometrics, and everything else. Sometimes you actually just need treatment. You need to work the muscle, you need to restore motion back into the joint. And what I've seen over the past, I would say 5-6 years, is almost an over-reliance on do these 3 magic exercises and all your shoulder pain will go away. And I've been in the game long enough. No, that doesn't happen. Will it happen with certain people? Sure.
Right.
And other people, I get them. You know what? If I have a guy, who's benching 500 and he's doing tubing, like this, that's not going to do anything. Like, I mean, it's a 3-pound tube,
Right.
or even doing certain exercises and stretches and all these other protocols. Sometimes you need hands-on, get the therapy,
Yeah.
get imaging. And the whole thing that I've noticed over the years is that I worked in a clinic with 13 medical doctors for 5 years, and they taught me there's an inclusion and exclusion criteria. What I mean by that is when you come in, is this something that I can do and help you with? If not, that's the exclusion, and I'm going to refer you on to someone that will.
Mm-hmm.
In training, it's usually they only have one modality. They have basically exercise. So guess what you're going to get? Exercise.
Right.
The same thing in my profession. If you see most chiropractors, what are you going to get? A chiropractic adjustment.
Right.
If you are skilled enough to do rehabilitation or other aspects, whether it be acupuncture, laser, percussion, active release technique, there's literally dozens and dozens of different techniques that you can utilize. But that's the real magic that I've started to see over the years.
Mm-hmm.
You're starting to see more and more practitioners having more tools. We're starting to see it also with the trainers having more tools, but now they're starting to slide into the therapy world, not really realizing that sometimes you're working, outside your scope of practice,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you start naming things. So that can get you in trouble.
Right. And my guess is at the conference, you guys really hammer that stuff in. And I mean, the lines are really blurry, right? Like when does one thing stop and when does another thing? Because we all have different experiences. We all have different educations, whether it's formal or non-formal. But I think a big piece of it is whether it's coaches or whether it's medical practitioners is they don't know who else they can trust. And so they feel like me doing it is going to be better than sending it off to someone I don't necessarily trust and hoping that they do kind of the best with them.
100%.
Which I think is a big piece of what SWIS is trying to accomplish is how do you create these relationships?
How do you create the relationships? How do you meet people? You know what? I've always said that the symposium happens in the hallways. It's not in the presentation rooms. The presentation rooms, it's a one-way conversation from the stage to the audience. Sure, you can ask a couple of questions, but that's usually not as powerful as when you see different presenters in the hallways and they all stay around. That's the one unique thing with SWIS and why so many top people want to come, because they want to see everyone else. Not only do they, want to present and get their information, they want to see other people and what's the latest and greatest that's happening out there. But the conversations that happen are just incredible. You have Dr. Stu McGill is one of the top back, doctors, in the country, talking to Dave Tate, one of the top powerlifters, and all of a sudden Dr. Eric Serrano walks up, and he starts talking. And then you have Justin Kavanaugh walking up, and you have 3 or 4 of the top people in different fields chatting and creating literally new ideas and challenging each other, but not from an ego standpoint. That's the one thing that I found with SWIS is that most of the time, most of the presenters leave their ego at the door. You know what? If you're benching 400 and you think that you're fantastic, and all of a sudden Bill Kazmaier walks around the corner, it's pretty hard to be cocky. So the egos are left at the door, and the whole focus is that how can we all improve? So there's so many attendees that they really even don't go to a lot of the presentations because they want to sit and chat with everyone in the hallway.
Right.
And, Dave Tate talked about this. A lot of the presenters, they do online coaching, and it's usually $200 to $300 an hour. They're there for free.
Right.
So literally you can get thousands of dollars of information from these people for a few $100s, to come to the symposium. So it's a real deal that way.
Do you guys facilitate? I know you talked about the one thing earlier where this year you're planning on kind of putting people into kind of categories on where they live and trying to facilitate conversations between, all the people that are in Columbus. Is there anything else that you guys do intentionally to try and facilitate more of these interactions?
We're looking at other meetups. So a meetup of all the top nutritionists. You know what? At 5:00, if you're in the nutrition field, meet at flag number 2. And we're going to be looking, powerlifters. We're going to have actually equipment in the hallways. So all of a sudden you'll have someone like Brian Carroll, who's squatted 1,000 pounds in over 50 competitions, and if you have a question about the squat, instead of talking about it, hey, you know what? Let's go over and let's see what your style's like. So you'll get online like coaching right there. So that's the interaction. I have done socials before. I find they're okay in the sense of, I might meet someone from New York.
Right.
That's cool. Does that help my business at all? No, not at all. I'm more interested in, I want you to meet the doctor or therapist or the trainer that's around the corner that you can actually meet. And the cool part is that if you meet in person, it's kind of almost like speed dating. Literally within about 90 seconds, you can figure out whether or not you want to work with this person.
Right.
Are they nice? Are they kind? Are they arrogant? Are they creepy? There's a whole bunch of things that, this person, we just really connect. This person, you know what?
Right.
Nah, I'm okay. Right. So that way you can only get that when you're in person. So that's the aspect. So there is no big social. I should qualify that. At the end, so on Friday, the symposium was on Friday, Saturday. It'll end at 8:00, and everyone goes to the restaurant, bar, eatery area. It's huge, and so everyone hangs out there. So all of a sudden, all the presenters, all the delegates, you hang out, you get to chat. And then, some of the presenters are drinking. Then they'll really tell you, the truth about information.
Truth, right?
Then you got the truth.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, I think what you're talking about in kind of almost breaking people down into categories as well. Like, hey, where do you live? Which is a great one because, I mean, you're going to be working with people in that area and being able to refer out to people in your area is phenomenal. I think by kind of your profession as well. So you get to other colleagues that you're working with is another really good one. So I think those are some great things. And so for people, like, who would be the best people to attend? Like, who's kind of your target market for this particular event?
As a gym owner, Coach Catalyst is the key to having low turnover. For several years, I struggled and spent 10 to 20 hours a week communicating with clients via phone calls, Facebook Messenger, email, and text messages. I had tried everything to make my life more efficient. I was at my wit's end. And then I found Coach Catalyst. Since starting the software, I have found a life again, and my clients are thanking me for being so involved in their fitness life. I've cut my daily commitment to interacting with over 300 clients to under 15 minutes a day, and have streamlined my 6-week challenges. I couldn't recommend it more. I just don't know if I would even be here today if it wasn't for Coach Catalyst. If you don't have an account already, you're missing out and not helping the people you could be.
Well, what we see is sort of a breakdown. We get about 30-40% of personal trainers and strength coaches and gym owners.
Yep.
We get about 30 or 40% of doctors and therapists. And then the other 20% is basically just weight training athletes, people that are advocates, people that, want to meet Ed Cohn. They want to meet Bill Kazmaier or Dave Tate or Brian Carroll, or, they want to chat with Dr. Eric Serrano, one of the top nutritionists and doctors in the area. So, Dr. Jordan Shallow is going to be there. He's one of the top chiropractors, but, he's created a whole new protocol on training. We got Dr. Steffi Cohen. She's one of the top powerlifters of all time. So we got some celebrity status, also. So some people actually just want to come and just shake these people's hand and get a selfie. And, we're in the selfie world, which is fine. So we're going to be doing that. Also, we just set it up today. This is the first time anyone has heard. So this is news breaking. As an hour ago, we just set it up that it will be live streamed. So people that cannot come, we're going to be live streaming the actual event, all 5 rooms, also the hallway, and then there'll also be interviews in the hallway with some of the different presenters. And so the live stream people will have access that actually, the people at the event won't, because, it'll be online. So yeah, we'll be doing that, and it'll be a super cheap price. It'll be, if you sign up the day of, it'll be $249. Okay. But I talked to Dave Tate, and we're going to make it for $149 for both days.
Right on. So, and then are you going to be recording? Are you recording it as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll all be recorded. And then if you want the recordings, some people do. So they'll be for $99 that, you can sign up, after you sign up, there'll be an option to get all the recordings for it. And that'll be of all 50 or 60 presentations. Actually,
Cool.
it'll probably be about 70. Yeah.
So when you guys run it, you have the 5 different tracks. Well, there's really kind of 4 tracks going on at one time, 4 or 5. Then are those all in different rooms, or do you kind of, and so it's like you kind of pick the track that you want to go to each hour or each, each set?
You can go to any of them. You don't have to pre-register. You walk in one room. If you like what you hear, you can stay. If you don't, you can leave, go to another presentation. And that's been the biggest complaint, is that usually there's 2 or 3 really, really good people that you want to see, and they're presenting at the same time.
Right.
So, everyone's always like, well, how do you decide? I said, well, who's the most interactive? The other ones, if it's informational, you can watch that later.
Right.
And if you want to ask them a question, they'll probably be in the hallway.
Right.
So, that's my advice for people to do that.
That's awesome. Well, let's switch gears here for a second. And, we're 20 plus years into this symposium. Like, year one, take me back to 1999. Like, why put on a live event? Because they're a ton of work, and they cost a lot of money when you're having to reserve rooms and you're having to reserve hotel space and all of those kind of things going into it. What made you pull the trigger, take the leap to be like, hey, the industry needs this, or the world needs this, and I want to be the guy to do it?
Yeah. I've been teaching across Canada, United States, to personal trainers and strength coaches, and also to doctors and therapists. And I saw a real disconnect. I saw, doctors giving, just poor information, like squats are bad for the knees, because they really didn't understand it. And then you had the personal trainer saying, do this magic, rubber band exercise and all your shoulder pain will go away. It's well-intentioned bad advice on both fields. So I thought, you know what, this will just be a giant experiment. And, let's throw some spaghetti on the wall and see what sticks. And the very first one I had, I think 2 or 3 streams. And I think I had like 400 people show up.
Wow.
And they were so enthusiastic. And it was really, really unique in the sense of the interactions that you had outside of the presentation.
Right.
Case in point, there's Dr. John Berardi from Precision Nutrition. Are you familiar with him?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know JB.
Yeah. So I didn't realize this, but he said, Ken, if it wasn't for SWIS, personal nutrition, precision nutrition wouldn't exist. I went, what do you mean? He said, I was just sitting there, and Krista was there, and also his other partner.
Yep.
They hadn't met before, and they just started chatting. And literally this was 2004. He says, in a couple of years, they rolled out, precision nutrition. And I think John just sold it a year or 2 ago for like 9 figures.
I was going to say, did you ask for a check? Did you say, hey, John, I feel like I have a little bit of skin in the game. Maybe I can get a place on the beach or something.
No. He worked hard for it. Yeah. But it was really cool that that actually, and he gave some really good advice. Like, I did the symposium from 99 to 2005, and then I took some time off. I saw that the industry, the internet, had actually kind of blown up.
Yep.
People weren't really into the live conferences much.
Yep.
And then in 2015, I brought it back. A lot of people were asking for it. I thought, okay, let's try this again, because most of them I lost money. It's a huge expense when you fly all the presenters in. Yep. You have to pay them, pay their food.
Yep.
The video, everything else. Yeah. So, anyways, John came out in 2015 and said, "Listen, he's a complete introvert. Most people don't realize that." And he says, I would usually hide, in my room. If I presented, I would just go up to my room and, just sit there. He says, my advice and my whole focus is that you never know who's sitting beside you. They could literally change your life. Just like, for John, meeting these 2 individuals that literally had changed his life and, amplified it tenfold. Now, John, he's created a book called Change Maker. It's a fantastic book, and literally trying to get trainers to make a change within their clients in the different ways. Another case in point, fascial stretch therapy. Chris and Ann Fredericks in SWIS 2002, I brought them out. Well, Human Kinetics was there, and a good friend of mine, Ed McNeely, who is the acquisition editor for Human Kinetics, he's sitting with them at dinner, and they're talking about this, and Ed goes, "You know what? You guys should do a book. We'll back you." And they're like, "Really?" And I talked to Chris and Ann Frederick. They sent me a message. They said, "You know what? If it wasn't for SWIS, we wouldn't have the whole fascial stretch FST wouldn't be as big because they wouldn't have been able to get the information out." So you never know who you're going to sit beside. So my focus is always to, come out of your, comfort zone, introduce yourself, chat with people. You're going to make a ton of friends. Everyone is friendly. There'll be a few chuckleheads, there always is, but you know what? Ignore them and just, meet people. The presenters are so nice, and they're very, very approachable. But you can get a little bit starstruck, when you see them. Ed Cohn or a Kazmaier or a Dave Tate, you've seen them so much online,
right?
And then when you finally see them in person, it's like, So, but they're friendly. They don't bite hard.
I love it. Yeah, and I think it's this blend too. Like, so for me personally, when I think about it, there's just nothing in the industry where there's a blend of industries, really, because usually as a sport coach, you're going to go to your sport coach conferences. As a athletic trainer, you're going to do that. As a medical doctor, you're going to do that, and you're learning about advances in your own field, where you're not necessarily learning about advances in other fields, where you're going to share people and clients, and you're going to be referring and back and forth. And so, and being able to do that in one place rather than, I need to go attend a medical conference, and I need to go attend an athletic trainer conference and attend a physical therapy one. Like, that's just not, I don't think that's realistic for most people. Right. And so bringing into one house is huge.
Well, and you have the opportunity, and even more importantly, we get to have these top people interact with each other.
Right.
I just found that when you get to a certain level, a lot of the presenters won't go to other people's, seminars. So they have kind of a judgment with that. And I saw that in 2001, where we had Dr. Mike Leahy, who basically created active release technique, and Dr. David Leaf, who's one of the top muscle testing people, in the country. And we always wanted to get them together. When you got two alpha males, it's just very, very difficult. And they always had sort of not nice things to say about each other, not personally, but about the technique. And so when Dr. Leaf was presenting, Dr. Leahy's in the back and he's watching, Dr. Leaf work, and he went, "Oh, so that's what you do."
Right.
And then Dr. Leaf sat in Dr. Leahy's presentation, and he was like, "So that's what active release is." I thought it was just, sort of a massage, and there was a whole protocol and understanding behind it. And they became really close friends. And all of a sudden, Mike goes, "Hey, Dave, you want to come to my seminar for free, just to check it out?" And Dave's like, "Yeah, absolutely." And vice versa. So we're even affecting, the higher levels so that they can understand, and then they can disseminate that information instead of their own biases and their own opinions versus something that they actually saw and experienced.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. Because many times as humans, we just have surface level knowledge. Maybe we watched a video or we saw a post on social media, and that informs our thinking. And you don't get to see. It's
getting worse.
Right. Right. You only see the tip of the iceberg. You don't see everything below the surface of the water. So, Ken, I'm super excited for this, and for everyone listening.
Me too. I'm so glad that you guys are coming.
Yeah, it's gonna be a ton of fun. And so, depending on when you're listening to this, the conference is October 28th and 29th. It's in Columbus, Ohio, so a pretty easy place to get to. What hotel is it at?
It'll be at the Hilton at Easton Mall, and that's the actual. Is it backwards? It's backwards. So it's Elite FTS SWIS 2022.com. I guess you'll have it in the show notes.
Yep, we'll put it in the notes for sure.
Yeah, so you can go there. It has all the information. So it's a great hotel. It's at the Easton Mall, which is one of the most premier malls in the United States. So it's like over 300 stores in sort of an outdoor expanse. And it's really, really nice. So there's literally dozens of great restaurants and training gyms and everything else. And then we made something very special for people. We have a VIP that you can go to Dave Tate's compound, his actually training center,
cool.
Just outside of Columbus, Ohio. So if you sign up for that, that'll be on the Sunday, and it'll be all day where we're going to have some of the presenters there and talking about training, but you get to train at the facility, and it's not a gym. And in fact, the only way that you can get there is actually to be invited. And to be honest, I've yet to be invited to actually train there. So it'll be quite the experience. Usually I'm just treating people, so I haven't trained there yet. But the amount of equipment that is there, if you watch Dave Tate with Table Talk, it's literally hundreds and hundreds of bars and unique equipment and people setting PRs and everything else. It's a real magical experience. So that's the VIP experience.
That's awesome. I'm just looking through the lineup right now, and it's pretty much the who's who in the strength and medical world. So,
yeah, we got everyone. We got Matt Wenning, we got Jim Wendler, we got JL Holdsworth, we got Travis Mash, Brian Mann, Josh Bryant from Jailhouse, Mike Israetel. We have Christian Thibodeau.
Yep.
We got Juji Mufu that I haven't released yet, but he's coming. Bill Parisi, Ed Cohn, Bill Kazmaier. And then we're going to do a tribute to John Meadows. John had presented for me for a number of times, and unfortunately passed away last year. So we're going to have a panel of champions and friends that, what's the one thing that I learned from John Meadows? So we're going to have probably about a dozen people talking about the experience being with John. But here's also a really cool technique that, he taught me. So we just want to give homage to John, for that. But, we got, the rehab stream. We have the nutrition stream, treatment, business. It's a full 2 days weekend, but you'll make friends for life there. And also you'll get to meet all your idols, the people that you actually see online. You actually get to chat with them. And what I see what's really unique is you have these younger influencers, in the 20 to 30-year-olds. They're taking the information from the, older generation, and repurposing it, saying that it's theirs and coming out. So you're gonna find out exactly who's there. And we have about a dozen sponsors, you being one of them. Can you talk a little bit about your booth and what you'll be talking about?
So Coach Catalyst is going to be there. We're going to have a booth, and really where we see Coach Catalyst fitting into all of this is we've seen this revolution of technology, right? And so there's all of this tech that's coming down. And so we find that we kind of see the future of coaching to be this blend of technology and humans. And so technology allows us to take all of this data and run it through algorithms and run it through machines and present what's most important to the coach. But coaching is a human experience, and it will always and forever be a human experience. It's the connection between a client and a coach, whether it's online or whether it's in person. That connection doesn't go anywhere. So we think about how do we make a coach a super coach or superhuman, and you do that with technology. So one isn't better than the other. AI isn't going to take everything over, and I think humans in and of themselves are going to have limitations. But once you start to blend the two together, it's like a 1 + 1 = 3 type of thing, where it's a synergy that happens, which allows a coach to have even more of an impact. So we're going to have a booth there. We're going to be talking about our technology and how it can help someone really improve, really scale their coaching, and really have a bigger impact. And with that bigger impact, is going to increase your income and all the things that come along with it. So we're super excited to be there.
That's great. No, I'm real honored to have you guys there. It'll be great.
So check it out. We've got SWIS Symposium 2022. If you just typed in SWIS, SWIS, into Google 2022, you get taken to the URL. But the URL is eliteftswiss2022.com. And I'm super excited to be there. Ken, anything else that I missed that you want to
No, we basically covered everything, and it's going to be an incredible experience. There'll literally be hundreds of different professions there, and that's the unique part.
Yep.
Is that you're going to have the doctors and therapists interacting with the powerlifters and talking to them, and we have treatment tables there, so a lot of times everyone's getting treated, and you get to see them work in real time, and the advanced things that you will not see anywhere else, and actually not even really online. So because it's the application to a specific injury, especially when it's weight training. So there may be certain exercises or even treatment protocols, but when it's a weight training, issue, you can actually reverse it, and then you'll be able to test it right there because we'll have all the equipment there to see whether or not what we do works. So it's a real experience. It's not just information; it's an experience.
I love it. Awesome, Ken. Well, appreciate you taking some time out of the day today to come chat with us.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll have you on again soon.
Absolutely.
See you later, Ken.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. I'll see you in a month.
Thanks so much for listening to another episode of the Coach Catalyst podcast. If you are a coach looking to do more for your clients than just workouts, give Coach Catalyst a test drive. Try it for 14 days. Jump on call with your personal strategy coach, Ashley, and see how easy technology can be, all for free. Tell them Trevor sent you. Until next time, keep changing lives.